My lowest point was actually coming home from Vietnam. That was the lowest point in my life. And then, of course, that led to the drinking all the time. When I came home, I thought to myself that I was just a really screwed up person. I just felt it was all me. It was a horrible, horrible time in my life. I hated that time period. And that was, that was years, not just a couple days, It's, I'm probably still adjusting from it yet.
When you're going into combat or when you're in combat, there's no conversations about PTSD and what it looks like, what it could be. I mean, I don't remember having any briefings about self-care or mental health care. And we're trained to kill. They're not going to teach us about mental health because we can't have any mental health issues. You're a soldier or you're a Marine. Like you have to have this facade that you can do everything and you control it all.
The military is a macho culture, whether you're male or female. I think what makes, again, combat trauma so different in my eyes as a clinician is that level of hypervigilance, that level of survivor's guilt, all that stuff that's happening day in and day out. And you have to think that service member is living on a high that whole time they're on deployment. And then they come home and none of the stuff that was appropriate or expected while you were overseas is really normal in our civilian society. So what are they coming home to? The bravado and the confidence that is needed to be overseas and to be able to go out and be in a combat zone, it doesn't fit well in our civilian society.
Hypervigilance for me is, any little thing I hear, I pop up. I'm checking on the kids, checking on the husband. I gotta come downstairs, I gotta check every door, I gotta check every window, I gotta make sure nobody's trying to come into my house or nobody's trying to come into my window. Or I don't like people standing very close behind me. So if I'm in a line somewhere, I gotta stand to the side, I gotta be able to see everything that's going on. I gotta be able to see the door, I gotta know where the exits are. Those types of things tend to be heightened after coming home from Iraq because you're always on guard. You always have to be aware. It always feels like you're pulling security somewhere, watching a perimeter somewhere, those types of things that you can't turn off.
As far as the Marine Corps is concerned, we're not supposed to come back and live normal lives. We're supposed to kill the enemy and die sometimes. And if we come back, well, that's a plus. But we're supposed to kill the enemy or be killed. There's nothing more glorious than dying doing what you love. And in that case, it's the infantry or artillery or whatnot.
But I do remember a lot of fighting and not wanting to do a lot of the things that I used to do. I wanted to be alone a lot. Like, just leave me alone. Like, let me just sit here and like listen to music or watch TV. Like, don't talk to me. Don't hold my hand. I don't want friends. I don't want, I kind of isolated myself. And at that time, I didn't understand why. I mean, I'm starting to slowly understand now because I've been diagnosed with PTSD. I didn't know I had PTSD. I didn't think anything was wrong with me, to be honest with you. I really didn't think anything was wrong. I didn't see any signs. I thought mentally I was okay. But we argued a lot, to the point where I was like, if you don't get out of my face, I swear to God, I'm gonna punch you in the face or I'm gonna choke you in your sleep.
We didn't know what post-traumatic stress was. We didn't hear, there was no such thing. So I was living with this, thinking that I'm just such a screwed up person. And I thought, look, you went through a war, grow up, stop being a sissy. And one day I was sitting in a doctor's office and I started reading about post-traumatic stress. And I went down the list and I thought to myself, son of a bitch, I have every one of those things, So I thought maybe there is something to it.
I actually started learning more about myself and my PTSD by talking to other veterans because I didn't talk about it before. I don't tell my husband stuff. He wouldn't understand. He didn't wear a uniform. He would know, he don't get it. He may, but in my mind, he doesn't get it. So why the hell would I explain to him what it's like seeing a burnt body? He don't get it. So, talking to these other combat vets is sort of therapeutic for me, because where I shelled everything and never discussed anything, I get to talk about it to people who have experienced the same things that I experienced.
So how do I know that I needed help, aside from the obvious? When I started using alcohol as a way of sleeping, as a mechanism, as another way to numb myself, when I disassociate with other people or isolate, I don't want to be around nobody. I think those were some of the symptoms that I was seeing. I saw them, but I was more comfortable not being with other people. I was more comfortable drinking by myself. I was more comfortable being angry, being pissed off. And that feeling that you get when you're pissed off in the civilian sector, maybe because it mimicked the adrenaline rush that I was getting while I was overseas. And maybe that's what it was doing to me.
There's so many different symptoms that I think, especially as family members, that you need to be able to be aware of and not judge the veteran on, but understand it and offer to stand with them through it and work with them through it, through counseling.
I thought that coming back to the civilian world would be pretty easy, because after all, it's not as intense as following orders, going out and doing things, going out to combat, going out to just doing things that you don't want to do, you know, putting your life in danger, but actually it turned out to be easier. Being in the civilian world is a lot harder.
The only briefing I really remember, because I'm gonna be honest with you, when it's time to come home, you're ready to be released. I mean, most of that shit is like wah 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 wah. I mean, it's like Charlie Brown. Like you don't really care. You just, I want to go home. I want to eat. I want a beer. You know, I need a fresh cigarette. Whatever your thoughts are at that moment.
So the Marine Corps doesn't have a backup plan, or didn't when I got out. When I got out in 04, hey, happy handshake, have a good job, enjoy yourself later.
DOD and VA don't talk. They may, but they don't talk in retrospect. So, you know, when you're having these briefings, they're not saying, go to the VA for help, or, you know, you can go to the regional benefits office and tell them that you hurt your knee in Iraq. They didn't just set you up for any of that. You know, the DOD just wanted to know, are you re-enlisting or are you getting out? If you're getting out, here's what you can and can't do. If you're re-enlisting, we got you. I came home in 2004. I found out in 2015 that I could have been treated for anything through the VA for 5 years for free. Never knew that. Why aren't they telling soldiers this when they come home, especially when you know they're getting out? When you have a soldier that's getting out of the military, those conversations need to be had.
But I remember towards the end of the deployment, I was actually nervous about leaving. Like I had gotten so used to being over there. I went through a hard time when I got back. And Clyde took me for a ride when I first got out here. We were looking for AA meetings. And, you know, so that was my plan, just to come out here, go to AA meetings and get right. But anyways, Clyde told me his story. And I was telling him mine. He was telling me, you know, we just related on so many levels. Like the way we were affected when we got out of the Marine Corps, and just, you know, just anything, you know, with child support, you know, the drinking, the relationships that were lost, the fighting, you know, everything, the troubles in the mind. And I look, and he's telling me his story, and I'm looking at him, and I was like, well, this dude's got some years on me. Like he's pushing he's close to a little high in them 60s or something, and but still like a bull, you know what I mean? But I'm like, he's still alive.
I like the fact that we have mentoring programs now, where I think a lot of veterans would rather talk to another veteran than they would a psychiatrist or a therapist.
I can talk about anything to Clyde, anything. Just because he's older don't mean that Clyde ain't, you know what I mean? Like he still talk with me, and I always feel better at the end of our conversations.
Vets are finding innovative ways to try to have a little piece of sanity by volunteering, and, you know, there's all types of veteran organizations out there that, you know, vets feel like they're giving back to other vets.
In 1 year's time, we took something like 15 to 18 veterans off the streets. They had absolutely nothing, nowhere to go, no food. We put them up in a hotel for a few days, we feed them, and we evaluate them for what's best for their future. When I was mentoring people, I wanted to talk to their families. I wanted their families to understand what this veteran's going through. What my personal experience was with alcohol, with depression, with the thinking about suicide. I just wanted their families to understand what this veteran's going through.
For me, the biggest thing that can save somebody's life is hope. Even if it's just a little bit, hope will make a difference, a huge difference in somebody's life.